Nobody likes being a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
I don't want to wear a fucking dress.
So, I'm non-binary.
The gaming industry is embracing diversity both in content and behind the scenes in an attempt to bring a new perspective to game development. This move is seen by critics and executives as essential for innovation and inclusivity, ensuring that games are more representative and relatable to a wider audience. However, as these changes unfold, we must ask ourselves, could this new step forward be unintentionally narrowing the range of voices and representation within our games?
No, I was recently diagnosed with stage 4. I don't give a shit.
Perhaps, and focusing so heavily on representation quotas, game studios are missing out on a more crucial form of diversity of thought and experience, and in doing so, are creating less diverse games. Forbes summarizes the movement in their Breaking Boundaries article, saying, "Diversity isn't just a buzzword, it's a fundamental principle driving innovation and success. To stay ahead of the curve, the gaming industry must embrace inclusivity and extend the invitation to participate in game development to all." However, as the industry strives for greater inclusivity, the games that embrace this way of thinking the most seem to also be failing the most. IGN reported that EA restructured Dragon Age developer BioWare to focus only on Mass Effect 5. They also went on to note that they were down nearly 50% from the company's projections on units sold, having sold to only 1.5 million players. Could the fervent push for diversity in both content and workforce be unintentionally undermining the diversity that truly matters?
But I still don't care.
And push the representation that is in games to an even smaller and more exclusive audience than before. By boiling diversity down to a checklist of representation quotas, studios have completely forgotten about the true diversity that makes the world great, the diversity and expression of thought and perspective from different worldviews.
I'm wasting my time, aren't I?
It leaves me wondering if studios even know that culture is more than just how you dress, the language you speak, and the color of your skin. Culture encapsulates centuries of shared situational experiences that have shaped a group of people from, yes, it can be how they look, speak, and dress, but also, and more importantly, how they think, act, and perceive the world. The video game industry has long been criticized for its lack of cultural representation, with critics raging against characters primarily coming from a homogenous background. This article by Centric points out the sexualization of women in video games before saying, "Similarly, young people of color have also faced marginalization in gaming. Games have often perpetuated negative stereotypes and harmful narratives, failing to represent these communities in a positive light." The quote concludes that this has resulted in a lack of representation, exclusion, and discrimination towards those who do not fit into the traditional mold of a gamer. The most visible effort to address this issue in recent years has been the call for more diversity in both the content of the games themselves and the teams that create them. Despite the scathing call for representation by Centric in their article dated May of 2023, the report from the American Gaming Association in April of 2023 noted that the gaming industry workforce is actually, and quote, significantly more diverse than the larger hospitality sector and US workforce as a whole. They cite in their metrics that 61% of the gaming industry employees are minorities. After comparing the minorities, we find that Asian employees are actually overrepresented at about twice the national workforce average. These numbers would suggest that the game industry is achieving their goal of expanding the representation of different genders, races, and cultures in game development so that those same developers can craft narratives that resonate with a broader audience. However, their audiences are getting smaller and they're still complaining that there's not enough representation within the workforce.
You can't have it both ways, Lucifer.
This push was especially evident in the recent Dragon Age. The game was lauded by critics for its diverse cast of characters, with the writing staff intentionally including writers from different ethnic backgrounds and personal experiences. However, these efforts made by BioWare did not result in actual representation. They did result in a checklist of identities that were acceptable to be represented. And it's apparent through both the product of their writing and some simple LinkedIn searches that this writing staff shared the same core beliefs about many of the issues they chose to address in the game.
And they all suck.
Creating an echo chamber that bypassed any form of thought diversity. The tendency to create echo chambers happens all too often when an industry becomes too focused on meeting specific representation metrics. It risks stifling creativity and meaningful discussion. The gaming community, just like any other industry, needs to be challenged in order to produce the best possible product. Unfortunately, echo chambers, where only certain viewpoints are allowed to flourish, can lead to an environment where developers focus only on what matters to them as a form of hive mind.
Once we understand the bug, we will defeat it.
Rather than crafting engaging and thought-provoking narratives that truly resonate with the diverse representation of players. Put together a staff of girl-crazy teenage boys, you get Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. Put together a staff of activists and allies, you get Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Neither of these games is inclusive, yet only one of them thinks they are, and that's a problem. In the case of Dragon Age, while the diverse writing staff certainly contributed to a richer variety of one perspective, the game offered little in the realm of dissenting opinions and conflict. Any conflict that could be found was surface level and easily resolved. Rather than picking at a deeper core issue, the game stayed safely on the surface of any true emotional relatability. As a side note, Dragon Age didn't do anything that BG3 didn't do before it. It was how they did it and what they didn't do, which made it a poor outing for BioWare. Rather than focusing on creating multifaceted characters with well thought out backgrounds, personalities, and the conflict that naturally occurs in such environments, the story became more about ticking boxes of representation like we've been talking about, portraying 9 different ways to arrive at the same conclusion. The foil characters in this story, designed to contrast each other and deepen the understanding of a character's motivations, stop at differences in personal preference, appearance, and generic banter personality. I haven't found a single character that truly challenges another's belief system. Instead, the game attempts to teach me about only one belief system like I'm playing some kind of sermon.
I believe in the non-binary God, whose pronouns are plural.
Which is about as boring as watching anchors on Fox News or CNN tell each other how smart they are for believing the same thing. The heart of the issue lies in the need for conflict and dissenting opinions. True diversity does not come by simply creating a character that looks different from the rest or hiring someone from a different demographic. Although hiring people from different demographics can help in the search for different worldviews, you have to remember that the demographic itself is not what you're after. True diversity comes from creating an environment where wildly different ideas can be contested, critiqued, and refined. This dynamic where differing viewpoints clash and meld is what drives creativity and innovation in any field, including gaming. Without conflict, there can be no resolution. In game development, this means fostering an environment where writers, designers, and other creatives are encouraged to challenge each other's ideas. Respectfully, when every decision is made by a homogeneous group of like-minded individuals, it becomes much harder to produce truly original work that resonates with a large audience. This was seen in the case of Dragon Age over and over again, where many of the character decisions seem to reflect more of a desire to satisfy external, executive, pressures than to tell a groundbreaking story in contrast. When ideas are debated, when people feel free to disagree, there's an opportunity to produce a deeper, more reflective experience that can challenge players' perceptions and open their eyes to new ideas. Another side note, I don't believe for a single second that this writing staff on Dragon Age worked independently. I believe that they were put together to do a very specific thing, and to the team's credit, I think they did exactly what they were put together to do. And yet, all of them are getting fired or transferred to new places, but I don't see any executives owning up for the mistakes that they made on this project. True diversity in video games, whether in content, workforce, or ideas, requires a willingness to embrace dissent and challenge assumptions. It's okay to have differing opinions, and it's okay to have our feelings hurt during these discussions. When we are challenged, we become stronger, and so do the games we create. By opening the door to differing viewpoints, developers can produce games that are not only more inclusive, but also more innovative and thought-provoking. Through engaging with and debating challenging ideas, games can become more powerful tools for connection, empathy, and understanding, allowing more people to see themselves within these virtual worlds and, in the process, better understand the perspectives of others, even if we don't like or agree with them. In the end, true diversity in games, not just checklist diversity, will allow the medium to become stronger, richer, and more representative of the world's multifaceted nature.